Hey guys, Pete and Roxy here, and today we are going to be talking about relationships and relationship issues, problems in the household, obviously with Pete and I recently that we're going to share with you. So we've just come out of a weekend where we get to go into our own heart space, our family and our temple without working and being of service and really ground in. And normally on this time on the weekends, we are getting that, knowings for ourselves. Our higher self is talking to us, and it's also helping us purge through density that does not serve us, integrating past lifetimes and kind of rewiring our own being in our own space. So on the weekend, I had a moment where I was getting triggered by Pete. He was just constantly triggering me around the house, and it kind of has been lingering now for a little while, like a couple of weeks, and I'm thinking, oh, what's this coming in? And, just being nice and kind and asking, is there anything that you can show me, rather than blowing him up, like some of us do in relationships. And it's really important for, us on this journey as light workers and having the awakening, that to realize that we are elevating and we're going to get triggered by our partner and our loved ones. So, and how to respond, how to navigate that. Obviously, Pete and I are very blessed. We had our awakening together. We're doing this together. We know how blessed we are, because we see a lot of light workers struggling in their marriages because their other half is not awake yet, or they might be on the complete polarized opposite emotional split with everything that's happening on the planet at the moment. So we are very grateful for what we're with, and we acknowledge that. So we've navigated through this awakening, and the first thing that happened when I did have the awakening was Pete triggered me. The male triggering me, although he did nothing, it was just within me that the male energy was triggering me. So like at the time it was all his fault, of course, because I didn't know how to use my language and express how I was feeling, and we're learning more and more how to deal with that. But anyway, so yes, on the weekend Pete was triggering me, and I had a bit of a go at him on Saturday afternoon. And so he was sitting there trying to be quiet and let me have my little spray. And, and it didn't really hit me until Sunday morning. That's when it all kind of came out. And I started to say, look, sorry about yesterday. I was getting triggered by you. And as I was talking, it was becoming very clear to me what I was getting triggered about. And then I went, oh, I could feel this. And it was around my father leaving me as a child, and he decided to leave this planet, and he committed suicide. He jumped off a bridge after drinking and having drug addictions and issues. So I was probably about 6 or 7 years of age, and my mum had moved away from him in another relationship already. And when we received the news that he'd passed, we didn't do a ceremony or go to a funeral, or there was no closure. It was, oh yeah. And then we all kind of started playing Barbie dolls again, in our own little kid-like state. And, I always longed for my father, and I always wanted him to be there. I always used to think he was my idol. And if he was here, he would protect me and support me. And so what was happening in the inner temple was I didn't feel special from Pete, but it was really just my emotion of not feeling special for my father from a child. And I hadn't really gone through that grieving process because those emotions were fully suppressed. And it was like almost like, it was really discomforting to my mother to even talk about my father. I remember one night I was obviously being a little bit naughty, and I got into trouble by my stepfather, and he came in all aggressively and said, I said, I wish my father was here, in a little girl's way. And he said, you don't want to know what your father did to your mum, and all this wild stuff. And so that was in there too for me to move through. So as I was talking about this with Pete, this was all starting to bubble up. And then he goes, I'm going to leave you with this. You need to process this. I'm going to go take the kids and give you some space. And even in that moment, that was triggering to me, because my father leaving me, another male walking out the door, leaving me again, you see. And so that was triggering, and that was really painful for me to go into. So I went deep into it and was crying like a baby, like a child, like like a child would cry. I was in a fetal position in my bed crying that grief out. And it was good because it was up. It had risen up from me holding it down in my lower energy centers. It was ready to release, but it was sitting all in the heart. And it was just so sad. And so Pete came back with the kids. He's like, oh, how are you feeling? I'm like, oh, thanks for giving me space. I explained all this to him, and he's like, okay, let's have an ice bath. And so we jump in the ice bath, and holy crap, I hadn't got it all out. Like, I'm at 3 minutes in the ice bath, and I just exploded with this crying, and my body was shaking, and it was like this energetic release that we can't even explain. It's never happened before. So I'm fully purging in the ice bath, tears, and I'm like, time just went. And so I ended up doing 4 minutes or something in the ice bath.
Shaking. And I'm thinking, do I get her out? Is this like good? Blah, blah, blah. And it was like, even one of the boys came up the hallway and go, what's going on? Oh, mum's just... what do you say? Mum's just working through some emotions. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay.
It's very common for our kids to see us in this process. It's important that they see the emotional side and the why, and then we go and explain it after, because, they're conscious beings. They won't have as much trauma to process, but they're getting so much awareness in that moment when we're sharing the truth. So Pete got me out of the ice bath because I still wasn't in a state to even stand up, and then on all fours next to the ice bath, cried it out again. And of course the song comes on at the time, and it's just making everything, it's like something had popped inside of me. And what was going through my mind in the ice bath was the grief was leaving, and then it brought me to a place of death. And in a past life, I died as a little girl, probably the same age that my father died, in a drowning in a boat in the icy water, kind of like Titanic. Wasn't that boat though. And so it took me there in the cold water in the ice bath. And then it took me to my father, how he died in the cold water as well. And I had to go through that grief of that. It felt like I was dying and having a rebirth at that moment. So yeah, it was quite hysterical. But see how we wanted to share this because, look, one, I've moved through it, so I'm comfortable with sharing it. And two, it can help you guys so much with relationships because we do trigger each other. That's a whole point. We come in as light workers and we say, okay, we're going to get married, and then you're going to have the awakening. I'm going to trigger you. Then you're going to trigger me. And so to navigate this and show unconditional love when you are moving through a process, Pete realized it wasn't him. And like, I was even angry when he left the room because I wanted him to like cuddle me and support me. And that triggered me as well, you see. So it's like, it's like all things, right?
Well, then you don't know, right? It's like, well, someone's working through their process and they're feeling a certain way. Depends why I'm comforting. If I'm comforting because I wanted to stop, well, that's actually not loving. I should just encourage her to get it all out. But if I'm comforting just to be the husband and to comfort, well, that's different, and that's okay as well, because I'm just there as stable and as support while she grieves. And then sometimes, like, I know she can do some of her best crying when the boys aren't in the house, right? So if I take the kids out, so it's like a navigation for me too, because even though I know all this, it's like, so is this a cry where I should give you a hug or not give you a hug, or be around or not be around? And what used to come up, of course, in the beginning, when you're not there, you go, well, what have I done? Maybe it is me. Maybe I didn't do this right, or maybe I haven't made her enough cups of tea or give her enough flowers. That's why she doesn't feel special. Or maybe that's all about me going to, I wonder, or what if this, what if that? Oh, shit, what if it's the end? Oh, blah, 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 right? Well, that would all be me then. Right, that'll be about fears and stuff in me that are coming up because of that interaction. But with this time, especially understanding, I knew I just needed to give her space, give her time, and let her work through it. And I need to make it really clear to you guys, because you might think, far out, on the weekend, I just went to the beach and had some chips and that was my Sunday. And it's like, sounds like these guys have full-on Sundays. 2 hours later, we're a family get together, you know, someone's triggering me there, right? Something's different. Someone's being a clown, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person's there just so asleep. And I got ticked off about something else, and it was completely different. And we ended up working through that, and it was all fine by the end of it. But you know, you never know where your triggers are going to come from in all these different situations. So, you know, it's one of these things where the relationship issue is a complicated one, because if it's right there in your home and it's not as supportive as Roxy mentioned, lucky, for some people it can be really difficult because they're with someone who isn't open to any of this talk at all. And I understand that challenge, because we speak to people like this a lot, talking about what can I do to get better and to work through these things. And the first thing to do is to realize you kind of can't convince them to have an awakening as much as you'd probably long for them to be on the same journey as you. And you can't sort of push change on them if they're not ready. And the answer to the question then becomes, well, what do you do? Do I have to get away from them? Are they holding you back? And the best answer to that is just work on you. Work on being the best version of yourself. Work on clearing out the density, doing all the things we talk about, the false limiting beliefs and the emotional traumas that are within you. And then once the density has passed, let your light shine. So density's passed, what the result is the shine. Like Roxy this morning, we've been up early, we've run 2 classes, and she's been like on fire, sparky, energetically present, and loving and giving to everyone we've been dealing with this morning. And it's like chalk and cheese yesterday to today. That's the reward. But that is the light that shines when the density is cleared. So when you're surrounded by negative people and you feel like that they're journeying you down, it's almost like at a psychological level, bubble yourself up, do the work on yourself from within, and like just let all your stuff clear. But then when you are feeling lighter and brighter, I really encourage you to show it. Like show that more. If you're doing the work, and you are, then be the light. And being the light means being happy, giving compliments, being generous with spirit. So by just complimenting people, showing your happiness, your joy, being silly, sparky, fun, being a high energetic expression of your soul in the outside world. So not just energetically go, oh, I'm so powerful, I've got so much light to give. Well, show it. You know, there might be some people like that, but they're not happy and they're not smiling, and you don't want to be around that energy. So expressing that out can be a massive way that the others see and then get curious. Okay, so what you are speaks so loudly, people can't hear what you're saying. So what does that mean? Well, it's not about you to convince them to wake up, to convince them to start doing the work. You know what your problem is? I think you've got a male issue or a female issue or a control issue or a pleasing people issue, or none of that. You just be the light, be happy, be kind, be accepting and understanding, be cool and calm under pressure, because you can respond rather than react, because you don't get triggered. And they're going to want to know, what do you do? What do you read? What do you believe in? What are you doing in your life? Because you really seem to be in a good place. And that's how light workers and way showers can be the light and help other people. Not only energetically are you calibrating and counterbalancing so many negative people, you can be actively out there creating change through just being who you are. And that's the whole purpose of coming back into the physical vessel and going through this whole process. Remember who you are, what your power is. And then once you find it, guess what it is? It's a spark of the divine. So it's full of light and laughter and fun, and it's a high energetic expression. So if you're in a relationship where that is difficult, rather than longing to change the other person or heaven forbid, trying to, just be and look how the energy will, through the natural curiosity, through the natural attraction of high vibrational energy, people will be turned to you. And if over time you feel you need to spend less time with certain people, like there are certain family members that we choose to spend less time with than others, just because at the moment their energy, their vibration is at a different place to that we want to be around. We love them, we care for them, we're here, got plenty of time and love for them, but that doesn't mean you need to hang around it all the time just out of some sort of duty. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, looking at yourself, if you get triggered, it's normally yours. So, you know, in relationships, we see people fighting and they're going, you didn't get that, you didn't get the esky out of the car, or whatever it is, so minor.
No,
but
I would know what an esky is.
Oh, sorry, like it's an esky in Australia, cooler box. And or just, you know, domestic stuff, or, you know, decision making, projecting on each other is you. If you're doing the projection, it's in you. You're getting triggered because it's in you. The unhealed you needs to, you're like, why did I get so triggered then? Look at that. Look at why your being doesn't like that. It's like, well, I don't like that because, you know, I don't feel like I was special. That's why I got triggered. I was getting triggered because my dad was never there for any of my birthdays. That's why I was getting triggered. I still had grief in there around his death. That's why I was getting triggered. So I was like trying to blame Pete, but it's like, look at here. This is where it's at. So look in before you project out at your loved one. Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, wherever you're at in your relationships at the moment and what you're working through, know that really it's actually all about you. And I know often you're not allowed to say that in life, but it can be all about you. Just do the work on you and help move towards yourself becoming the best version of yourself, better and better. My dad used to say to me as a little affirmation to all me and my brothers, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. And it's like, it sounds so corny, but it's actually a really good thing to have in there in the brain, because you want to be more and more understanding, empathetic, loving, joyful, high vibrational expression. So I really like throw that challenge out to you, that if you're doing the work to then like express and actually allow and change and shift the habits, the responses, even the words and the terms that you use, and move yourself in that direction so that you have a more high vibrational life and enjoyable day as well, and you're being of service and being the light.
So that's it from us. Have a beautiful week. Enjoy your relationships. Always look at why you're getting triggered. We're all shifting consciousness on the planet and we're all doing a great job. So give yourself a pat on the back. You should be really proud of you and your soul coming here and doing this amazing deep work. And we love you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll see you all again really soon.
Bye, guys.